We're still here despite the atrocities, despite what happened after King Philip's War, where our people were sold into slavery, sent to the Caribbean on the ships that were taking rum to Europe and were heading to Africa to get African slaves, not just rum to Europe, but furs and trade goods and wood that they were sending over, resources they were ripping from the land here to provide to Europe and England in particular that didn't have those resources and needed them desperately, masts for ships and things of that nature. It was brutal. And so Narragansett people, as well as other Southern New England tribal people, if they weren't killed during the war, and people that were in power, they were pretty much killed. Female family members of people in power and very young boys that were from those families, if they weren't killed outright, then they were sold into slavery into the Caribbean. About maybe 15 or so years ago, we had a reconnect with folks. That weaving that I did over there, the blue one that's on the window wall, that's about that reconnection, that connection between us and those people that over these hundreds of years, and now we've reconnected, that their oral history and some of their documented history proves that they're descendants of those indigenous people that were sold into slavery to the Caribbean and happened to land on the archipelago of Bermuda and eventually escaped the plantations and created their own community on what is known as St. David's Island, which is the very last island on the archipelago that didn't get a bridge until the 1950s. So it was very, very isolated. And about maybe 4 years ago, the Genome Project came there. Every time I tell this story, I get those tingles on my cheeks. And proved, even for those that need the science, proved that they were actually from here, that they are indigenous to the east coast of North America. And so for me, that's a healing thing, that we've come together full circle and that our families know each other and that are intersecting today. My niece got married last June, and one of her bridesmaids was one of the young women from there. They've spent the last 15 years growing up together, and now they're like 25. So they've had all this time that they're now so intertwined with each other. So that's a beautiful thing. But that's what was happening to our people. If they weren't sold into slavery there, they were scattering all over the place for survival. Sometimes moving out of state and going up north, going with the Brotherton movement up to Brotherton, New York, and then out to Brotherton, Wisconsin. Again, we've had reconnections with those folks just by accident. I was at the Rhythm and Roots Festival we partnered with them last year to bring Native performers into the festival, storytellers and activities and artists and things. And Dawn Dove, who happens to be my mother, is an elder, and she was doing the opening prayer. And because she was there, one of the band groups that was there, they had this gentleman that came up and wanted to meet her. And it turned out he was Brotherton from Wisconsin, but living in Canada now. And he came over and met all of us, and we get to talking, and he's like, "Oh, I'm from the Ski-Suck family line." Well, we're from the Ski-Suck family line. He's clear across the country, and we're actually related directly. So it was really cool because the Narragansett and the Niantic, which I've been mentioning back and forth, we merged together as one people after King Philip's War. And we were always allies. The Niantic used to pay tribute to the Narragansett for protection because the Narragansett was a bigger tribe with more warriors for protection. The Nipmunk paid tribute to the Narragansett. From what I understand, the Wampanoag paid tribute to the Narragansett, and also some of the tribes out on Long Island paid tribute to the Narragansett. So you think about the region and the reach of the Narragansett people in those days and what it was like and how decimated we've been over those years. However, despite all of that, we've survived, and we're still here in the 21st century, and in many ways thriving, and have been able, despite the atrocities, to maintain our culture and traditions and pass forward language and maintain our communities. And even those that have been spread all over the globe, if you will, out to the Caribbean and over to Wisconsin, and those that married into other communities and kind of, if you will, disappeared into another tribal group, they're still our people, and we're all connected to each other, and we have a common history. And when, I'll flip subjects for a second, back to King Philip's War and afterward, there was also this move to indenture, those people that didn't go someplace else and weren't in the very, outskirt areas and different things like that. Many were indentured. Rhode Island is known as, most people just know it as Rhode Island, but the legal name is Rhode Island and the Providence Plantations. And it is, in my opinion, time for us to change the name, because we're keeping an oppressive name. That name was the name used to have those plantations and to make that wealth that happened during the Industrial Revolution and through the golden age of Newport and all of those kinds of things, is really on the back and the blood of indigenous people and African people that were also enslaved here in these plantations. And we have until we acknowledge what actually happened and stop pretending that it didn't. I work in a Native American museum here. I can't tell you how many people are shocked when I tell them that we were enslaved. They're like, what? Huh? That we were sold into slavery and that we were enslaved right here in our own homeland.